William IV was King of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland and King of Hanover from the 26th of June 1830 until his death, the third son of George III and younger brother and successor to George IV. He was the last king and penultimate monarch of Britain's House of Hanover. William served in the Royal Navy in his youth and was, both during his reign and afterwards, nicknamed the Sailor King. He served in North America and the Caribbean. In 1789, he was created Duke of Clarence and St Andrews. Since his two older brothers died without leaving legitimate issue, he inherited the throne when he was 64 years old. His reign saw several reforms. The Poor Law was updated, child labour restricted, slavery abolished in nearly all the British Empire, and the British electoral system refashioned by the Reform Act 1832. Although William did not engage in politics as much as his brother or his father, he was the last monarch to appoint a prime minister contrary to the will of Parliament. Through his brother, the Viceroy of Hanover, he granted his German kingdom a short-lived liberal constitution. At the time of his death, William had no surviving legitimate children, but he was survived by 8 of the 10 illegitimate children he had by the actress Dorothea Jordan, with whom he cohabited for 20 years. William was succeeded in the United Kingdom by his niece Victoria, and in Hanover by his brother Ernest Augustus. Early life. William was born in the early hours of the morning on the 21st of August 1765 at Buckingham House, the third child and son of King George III and Queen Charlotte. He had 2 elder brothers, George and Frederick, and was not expected to inherit the crown. He was baptized in the Great Council Chamber of St James's Palace on the 20th of September 1765. His godparents were his paternal uncles, the Duke of Gloucester and Prince Henry, and his paternal aunt, Princess Augusta, then hereditary Duchess of Brunswick-Wolfenbüttel. He spent most of his early life in Richmond and at Kew Palace, where he was educated by private tutors. At the age of 13, he joined the Royal Navy as a midshipman, and was present at the Battle of Cape St. Vincent in 1780. His experiences in the Navy seem to have been little different from those of other midshipmen, though in contrast to other sailors he was accompanied on board ships by a tutor. He did his share of the cooking and got arrested with his shipmates after a drunken brawl in Gibraltar. He was hastily released from custody after his identity became known. He served in New York during the American War of Independence. While William was in America, George Washington approved a plot to kidnap him, writing, "The spirit of enterprise so conspicuous in your plan for surprising in the quarters and bringing off the Prince William Henry and Admiral Digby merits applause, and you have my authority to make the attempt in any manner, and at such a time as your judgment may direct. I am fully persuaded that it is unnecessary to caution you against offering insult or indignity to the persons of the Prince or Admiral." The plot did not come to fruition. The British heard of it and assigned guards to William, who had up till then walked around New York unescorted. He became a lieutenant in 1785 and captain of HMS Pegasus the following year. In late 1786, he was stationed in the West Indies under Horatio Nelson, who wrote of William, "In his professional line, he is superior to 2/3, I am sure, of the list, and in attention to orders, and respect to his superior officer, I hardly know his equal." The two were great friends, and dined together almost nightly. At Nelson's wedding, William insisted on giving the bride away. He was given command of the frigate HMS Andromeda in 1788, and was promoted to Rear Admiral in command of HMS Valiant the following year. William sought to be made a duke like his elder brothers, and to receive a similar parliamentary grant, but his father was reluctant to put pressure on him. William threatened to stand for the House of Commons for the constituency of Totnes in Devon. Appalled at the prospect of his son making making his case to the voters. George III created him Duke of Clarence and St Andrews and Earl of Munster on 16 May 1789, supposedly saying, "I well know it is another vote added to the opposition." William's political record was inconsistent and, like many politicians of the time, cannot be certainly ascribed to a single party. He allied himself publicly with the Whigs as well as his elder brothers George, Prince of Wales, and Frederick, Duke of York, who were known to be in conflict with the political positions of the father. Service and politics. William ceased his active service in the Royal Navy in 1790. When Britain declared war on France in 1793, he was anxious to serve his country and expected a command, but was not given a ship, perhaps at first because he had broken his arm by falling down some stairs drunk, but later perhaps because he gave a speech in the House of Lords opposing the war. The following year he spoke in favor of the war, expecting a command. After his change of heart, none came. The Admiralty did not reply to his request. He did not lose hope of being appointed to an active post. In 1798 he was made an admiral, but the rank was purely nominal. Despite repeated petitions, he was never given a command throughout the Napoleonic Wars. In 1811, he was appointed to the honorary position of Admiral of the Fleet. In 1813, he came nearest to any actual fighting, when he visited the British troops fighting in the Low Countries. Watching the bombardment of Antwerp from a church steeple, he came under fire, and a bullet pierced his coat. Instead of serving at sea, he spent time in the House of Lords, where he spoke in opposition to the abolition of slavery, which, although not legal in the United Kingdom, still existed in the British colonies. Freedom would do the slaves little good, he argued. He had traveled widely and, in his eyes, the living standard among freemen in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland was worse than that among slaves in the West Indies. His experience in the West Indies lent weight to his position, which was perceived as well argued and just by some of his contemporaries. Others thought it shocking that a young man, under no bias of interest, should be earnest in continuance of the slave trade. In his speech to the House of Lords, William insulted William Wilberforce, the leading abolitionist, saying, "The proponents of the abolition are either fanatics or hypocrites, and in one of those classes I rank Mr. Wilberforce." On other issues he was more liberal, such as supporting moves to abolish penal laws against dissenting Christians. He also opposed efforts to bar those found guilty of adultery from remarriage. Relationships and marriage. From 1791, William lived with an Irish actress, Dorothea Bland, better known by her stage name, Mrs. Jordan, the title, Mrs., being assumed at the start of her stage career to explain an inconvenient pregnancy, and Jordan, because she had crossed the water from Ireland to Britain. William was part of the first generation to grow to maturity under the Royal Marriages Act 1772, which forbade descendants of George II from marrying unless they either obtained the monarch's consent or, if over the age of 25, gave 12 months' notice to the Privy Council. Several of George III's sons, including William, chose to cohabit with the women they loved, rather than seek a wife. Having legitimate issue was not a primary concern for William, as he was one of the younger sons of George III. He was not expected to figure in the succession, which was considered secure once the Prince of Wales married and had a daughter, Princess Charlotte, second in line to the throne. William appeared to enjoy the domesticity of his life with Mrs. Jordan, remarking to a friend, "Mrs. Jordan is a very good creature, very domestic and careful of her children. To be sure she is absurd sometimes and has her humours, but there are such things more or less in all families." The couple, while living quietly, enjoyed entertaining, with Mrs. Jordan writing in late 1809, "We shall have a full and merry house this Christmas, 'tis what the dear Duke delights in." George III was accepting of his son's relationship with the actress. In 1797, he created William Ranger of Bushy Park, which included a large residence, Bushy House, for William's growing family. William used Bushy as his principal residence until he became king. His London residence, Clarence House, was constructed to the designs of John Nash between 1825 and 1827. The couple had 10 illegitimate children, 5 sons and 5 daughters, 9 of whom were named after William's siblings. Each was given the surname Fitz-Clarence. Their affair lasted for 20 years before ending in 1811. Mrs. Jordan had no doubt as to the reason for the breakup. "Money, money, my good friend, has, I am convinced, made him at this moment the most wretched of men," adding, "with all his excellent qualities, his domestic virtues, his love for his lovely children, what must he not at this moment suffer?" Quote, "She was given a financial settlement of £4,400 per year and custody of her daughters on condition that she did not resume the stage. When she resumed acting in an effort to repay debts incurred by the husband of one of her daughters from a previous relationship, William took custody of the daughters and stopped paying the £1,500 designated for their maintenance. After Mrs. Jordan's acting career began to fail, she fled to France to escape her creditors, and died, impoverished, near Paris in 1816. Before he met Mrs. Jordan, William had an illegitimate son whose mother is unknown. The son, also called William, drowned off Madagascar in HMS Blenheim in February 1807. Caroline von Linsingen, whose father was a general in the Hanoverian infantry, claimed to have had a son, Heinrich, by William in around 1790, but William was not in Hanover at the time that she claims, and the story is considered implausible by historians. Deeply in debt, William made multiple attempts at marrying a wealthy heiress, but his suits were unsuccessful. Following the death of William's niece Princess Charlotte of Wales, then second in line to the British throne, in 1817, the king was left with 12 children, but no legitimate her children. The race was on among the royal dukes to marry and produce an heir. William had great advantages in this race. His 2 elder brothers were both childless and estranged from the wives, who were both beyond childbearing age anyway, and William was the healthiest of the 3. If he lived long enough, he would almost certainly ascend the British and Hanoverian thrones, and have the opportunity to sire the next monarch. William's initial choices of potential wives either met with the disapproval of his eldest brother, the Prince of Wales, or turned him down. William's younger brother Adolphus, the Duke of Cambridge, was sent to Germany to scout out the available Protestant princesses. He came up with Princess Augusta of Hesse-Kassel, but her father Frederick declined the match. 2 months later, the Duke of Cambridge married Augusta himself. Eventually, a princess was found who was amiable, home-loving, and was willing to accept, even enthusiastically welcoming William's 9 surviving children, several of whom had not yet reached adulthood. At Kew on the 11th of July 1818, William married Princess Adelaide of Saxe-Meiningen, the daughter of George I, Duke of Saxe-Meiningen. At 25, Adelaide was half William's age. The marriage, which lasted almost 20 years until William's death, was a happy one. Adelaide took both William and his finances in hand. For the first year of marriage, the couple lived in economical fashion in Germany, and William's debts were soon on the way to being paid, especially since Parliament had voted him an increased allowance, which he reluctantly accepted after his requests to increase it further were refused. William is not known to have had mistresses after his marriage. The couple had 2 short-lived daughters and Adelaide suffered 3 miscarriages. Despite this, false rumours that Adelaide was pregnant persisted into William's reign. He dismissed them as damned stuff. Lord High Admiral William's elder brother, the Prince of Wales, had been Prince Regent since 1811 because of the mental illness of the father, George III. In 1820, the king died, leaving the crown to the Prince Regent, who became George IV. William, Duke of Clarence, was now second in the line of succession, preceded only by his brother, Frederick, Duke of York. Reformed since his marriage, William walked 4 hours, ate relatively frugally, and the only drink he imbibed in quantity was barley water flavored with lemon. Both of his elder brothers were unhealthy, and it was considered only a matter of time before he became king. When the Duke of York died in 1827, William, then more than 60 years old, became heir presumptive. Later that year, the incoming Prime Minister, George Canning, appointed him to the office of Lord High Admiral, which had been in commission since 1709. While in office, William had repeated conflicts with his council, which was composed of Admiralty officers. Things finally came to a head in 1828 when, as Lord High Admiral, he put to sea with a squadron of ships, leaving no word of where they were going, and remaining away for 10 days. The king, through the Prime Minister, by now Arthur Wellesley, 1st Duke of Wellington, requested his resignation. He complied. Despite the difficulties William experienced, he did considerable good as Lord High Admiral. He abolished the Cat o' tails for most offences other than mutiny, attempted to improve the standard of naval gunnery and required regular reports of the condition and preparedness of each ship. He commissioned the first steam warship and advocated more. Holding the office permitted him to make mistakes and learn from them, a process that might have been far more costly had he not learned before becoming king that he should act only with the advice of his councillors. William spent the remaining time during his brother's reign in the House of Lords. He supported the Catholic Emancipation Bill against the opposition of his younger brother, Ernest Augustus, Duke of Cumberland, describing the latter's position on the bill as infamous to the Duke of Cumberland's outrage. George IV's health was increasingly bad. It was obvious by early 1830 that he was near death. The king took his leave of his younger brother at the end of May, stating, "God's will be done. I have injured no man. It will all rest on you then." William's genuine affection for his older brother could not mask his rising anticipation that he would soon be king.